One last time. Hey, old friend.
Long ago, there lived a man, blessed by the gods and revered by the people as their savior. His name was Ardyn Lucis Kylum, and he was to have served as the first king of Lucis.
Tension between the two countries remains high, with neither nation showing signs of backing down. In other news, a member of the Border Patrol has been reported MIA since sometime before dawn this morning. The missing officer has been identified as 28-year-old Mars Sapientia. Although Officer Sapientia allegedly reported for duty at his appointed time, fellow officers say he disappeared soon after and has not been sighted since. Officer Sapientia is a tall, fair-skinned male and was last seen wearing his Border Patrol fatigues. Anyone with information on Officer Sapientia's whereabouts are requested to contact the Crown City Police immediately. And now a word from the Public Information Bureau. Today marks the anniversary of the founding of the Kingdom of Lucis. The Founders Day Committee has prepared a number of attractions in honor of this auspicious occasion, including a parade around the Citadel as well as a statue of the Founder King himself. All are welcome and encouraged to participate in today's festivities. This has been a message from the Public Information Bureau.
What about you?
Now, on to the weather.
Shouldn't you be looking for your buddy?
Today in the Crown City, we expect mild and sunny weather with nothing but blue skies.
I'm on
The
special
Borderlands
assignment.
may experience some inclement weather, starting in the evening and continuing throughout the night. That concludes today's news and weather.
Home, sweet home at last.
On that note, welcome back to part 58 of Final Fantasy XV, where today we'll be tackling episode Ardyn, a precursor to the events of the main game, released only this March just gone, 2019, and is the last content to be added to Final Fantasy XV, so it'll be the last time I return to this series to wrap anything up. So over the next few parts we'll be tackling episode Ardyn, since it is the biggest episode of the bunch, which is fitting for it to be the final one, for it to be so big. Additionally, it's extremely story driven in this first section specifically, because it's split into 3 chapters. The first 2 chapters we do today, chapter 3 is the next 2 parts, as I get stuck on people. But chapter 1 and 2 are both incredibly story driven, and so there's going to be a lot of cutscenes and very little of me talking. For better or worse. But it starts out actually as a hint as to what's to come, because we're actually in chapter 3 properly now. And when we get to the next set of cutscenes, we'll then go to chapter 1 to see the build up to this. But this is when Regis was sitting the throne and Noctis had yet to be born. So this is about 20 years or so before the events of the main game. And Ardyn has quite the skeptical view on everything. But that being said, we have more cutscenes, so here we go.
We should. No, of course. Absolutely.
Now, let the fireworks begin!
Okay.
Right, let's go.
Yes. Oh, yes.
Cursed be the waving plumes of the
Ardyn. Oh, Ardyn. You can't expect me to believe that.
Oh, but I do. You have my word.
Well, in that case... You look exhausted, my love. Are you all right?
I am. The gods bless me with a power and a purpose to cure people of what ails them. I must see their will be done.
Your devotion shall not go unnoticed. The gods will doubtless be watching over you. Just as I shall be watching over you every step of the way. It seems to me the cure for your exhaustion is comprised of two things, one of which is rest.
Oh? And the other?
Is me.
Oh, Era, pray be with me, always.
He's alive. Just as the ancient texts told.
Who?
Take him away.
Don't touch me.
Status report. Everything is fine here.
Roger that. We'll transport the subject to your location.
And we'll have the medical team ready as planned.
What's the situation over there?
Nothing to report. We're just...
Time for a bit of combat in this action game. You know, we're only 9 minutes in before we get to. And even then, when it first starts, you don't have access to, well, really anything. It gives you more tools as this goes on. But the easiest way to get through this first section is make sure your HP hits 0. Just walk into them and get your HP to 0. It'll end this phase immediately. You can drag it out for as long as you want, but it's just easier to... There you go. And then you'll be introduced to one of Ardyn's mechanics. When this HP initially drops to 0, you enter this berserker mode called Overkill. In Overkill, your defense drops drastically, but your attack power and your attacks change from the normal when you see the normal later on. However, if this HP bar then goes down before Overkill runs out, it's a lock-in game over. Even if you have Phoenix downs, it will stop you and force a game over. Which I kind of like. I like that pressure of, well, if you want to use Overkill you can, but if you want to get out of it you need to heal out of it or play it very safe. But this is the basic moveset of Ardyn. He uses a sword in a not too dissimilar way to how Noxus uses it, but he actually has his own sword now. unlike what he did in the main game. And this actually has been translated over into the main game now. If you fight Ardyn in the main game, this will be his primary weapon, instead of it just being a default generic sword. Like, it's just a nice little extra detail that they've thrown into it now. And right now all we can do is the basic attack and sidestep, but trust me when I say this, Ardyn's great fun to play as. He just needs to let us use all his tricks, because he has a lot of them and they're all great. So these ranged enemies, well, we need to get in quick. If you tap square's dodge, if you hold it, you do this. You should have just shadow step everywhere and like warp around. It's brilliant. And it's such a fast way of getting around in and out of combat that you'll pretty much see me only travel with it, because it's so good to just get in and out with it. Like to just nip to the side. Yeah, it burns through MP, but you can get it back easy enough, because when we get to chapter 3, we'll get the ability to straight up warp to locations, and when you warp it regenerates MP whilst you're travelling through the warp. So you just mix up shadow stepping and warping, and you can go at breakneck speeds. Every time you land a finishing blow in a combo, which it says land 5 hits, but it's not, it's the finishing blow. You could miss the first 4, as long as the 5th one connects. It will stagger an enemy, allowing you to demify them. Demifying is an instant kill.
Him of the scourge. I bestowed it upon him.
Incredible. His power's unbelievable. Hey!
Era. Somnus.
Forgive me, brother, but the throne seats only one.
Era! Gods, no!
Ardyn.
Ardyn Azunia, Chief Besithia would like to see you.
And now time for the slowest part of the episode, Chapter 2. Because Chapter 1 is just sort of the tutorial to introduce you to a few things. Chapter 2 might as well be summarised as the history lesson, the chapter. Because Ardyn's unknowing of the world is an excuse for them to essentially drop a lot of world building that never existed in the game's writing up until this point. So it's an opportunity for you to learn the last few fragments of the game's lore that they never got around to telling in the main game. Which I don't mind, but because this is the last piece of content that we're getting for Final Fantasy 15, a lot of the new information we get is kind of like, well, that doesn't really help kind of thing. Like, it doesn't really solve anything. But you can read through these journals by Bessie. You can also look through the Roxasha blade, which is Ardyn's blade. You can go through characters. I know who Somnus was, Era, the first Fleuret, the Old Wall, which is just essentially the fancy name for the Mystic or Somnus. Also, Ardyn's out of combat jog is interesting, to say the least. because his movement animation is to compensate for his main outfit, like in the main adventure, but he's not wearing it, and so it just looks kind of janky that he's got his arms that wide out, and he's kind of just doing this weird ass jog. But more cutscenes, because I'll rarely get to talk in this for now.
Come, have a seat.
Gods above, we thank you for the bounty you have laid before us.
Don't want your food getting cold, do you? Are you enjoying your stay?
No.
You've been asleep for years. Learning to appreciate the waking world will take time. Perhaps I can help enlighten you while we dine.
How long has it been since you brought me here?
204 days. Roughly 7 months or so. Then again, the Lucians had you locked away in that prison for nearly 2 millennia. I'd be more surprised if you hadn't lost all concept of time. You must loathe those Lucians for what they did to you.
Was your examination of me a fruitful one?
Oh yes, you've proven far more fascinating than expected. No wonder they kept you locked away. To think the powers of a demon could dwell within the heart of a man, it's incredible. The Star Scourge doesn't sap your life force, it gives you more. Your cells can regenerate themselves, and you can demonify other life forms as well. There's no doubt you are
a monster.
Not a monster, a marvel. I can't wait to unravel all your mysteries.
What is this food?
Meat, cloned in this facility.
Cloned?
We cultivated somatic cells, used them as donors to fuse the nucleus transplant cells to the recipient oocytes, and then we...
Enough! I've no ear for the ramblings of a lunatic. What is it you want from me, anyhow? What about me interests you so?
You said it yourself, didn't you? You were chosen by the gods. And frankly, with powers like yours, I'd say you're nearly a god in your own right. We need those powers that you possess. With your strength on our side, we could finally put an end to the gruesome war with Lucis. You too must desire the fall of the kingdom that cast you into exile.
My desires are all in the past.
The man who wronged you may have died long ago, but his descendants live on to this day. Surely you must bear them some feelings of ill will.
My feelings are none of your concern.
Vestal isn't really subtle about what he wants. Like he wants to manipulate Ardyn to try and get him to do what he wants by trying to feed on an idea of revenge. And I don't know how I feel about that, because I liked in the main game that Ardyn was this being who didn't care for anyone else. He did what he wanted and everyone was an extension of his own ends. So for this to try and imply that Vestal kind of set him off on that side, because originally he was more a curious soul, I'm not sure how I feel about that, because it feels like it adds an extra element of humanity to Ardyn, which I get. And I appreciate the effort to do that, but the way they've gone about doing it well, no, he probably wouldn't have gone on that quest for revenge if he wasn't so egged on by Vestal, as you're gonna see. But he really is egged on into it, so he almost like puts the words in his mouth and puts the ideas in his head, and eventually Ardyn just decides to run with it. But we have a lot more of this. This is all world building. You can finally see the entirety of the world, how it formed. It will tell you of ancient kingdoms. It will tell you about the Peteos ruins and such, where they originate from. It will tell you how each region was founded. It will actually give you a year when they were all founded, which is nice. It will give you a birthplace of the gods, where where things were found, like the discovery of human race, the first discovery of demons, the birth of fire and knowledge, things like that. Like, it gives you all the world lore it would have been nice to have in the main game. But it's because this is the last piece of content in Final Fantasy 15, a lot of this isn't necessary anymore, I guess. Like, we're never going to learn anything else about the civilization of Solheim, other than what we've seen in the ruins in the main game, and this little bit here that just says it was an ancient civilization that had a really advanced technology. But you could already work that out because of the Peteos ruins, because of the Grove, because of Kostelmark. Like, you already had an idea that they were an advanced civilization from many eons ago. But it is, for what it's worth, interesting to read through and be like, oh, okay, so this is how everything works, everything makes sense, and yada yada. The way they explain demons, I'm also a bit standoffish with, because before the event of this DLC, sorry, because clearing my throat, I'm readjusting to talking. But before the events of this DLC, demons were kind of left very vague as to how they came about. Like, it was like, well, humanity can become demons because the Star Scourge. But what's the Star Scourge? Well, it's the Star Scourge. They didn't really like say anything more on it. Whilst in this, they explain that all demons, and then by proxy the Star Scourge, is off a parasite. It's a parasite that gets into your blood and gets into your veins, and then that parasite demonifies you. The only exception is Ardyn, because Ardyn is demonified, but he's such to an advanced plane of it that he can control it. He doesn't have the parasite, but he can give it out, kind of thing. Which is how he demonifies people. But his demonification, because he, for lack of a better word, he is the parasite. He learns every memory that person had when he demonifies them. He trades out, like he gives them a bit of demon and takes back their memory. And we also learn about Mor's Lucius Caelum, Noctis' grandfather and Regis' father. And Angel Guard was where Ardyn was locked up, which is a bit interesting. They mention it in this, I think, yeah, the Adagium. Which Adagium is also a new term that they decided to throw in for this DLC. Like, and I guess it's their way of covering up Kingsglaive. Or covering for Kingsglaive, because Kingsglaive, Ardyn and Regis meet. And although Regis kind of gives away he already knows who Ardyn is, he keeps it subtle enough that I guess they needed to try and find a right around that didn't make it really obvious. Like, if Regis just straight up met Ardyn, it wouldn't make much sense in Kingsglaive that he'd be so subtle about it, because the dude literally attempted to destroy the city, as you saw in the opening where he summoned Ifrit. Oh, sorry, Ifrit, because they can't pronounce things properly in this game. I like that they do actually give a bit of timeline placement for this, even though I don't know what ME stands for. Like, what happened on year 0 of ME if Ardyn and the Lucius Throne happened over 2 millennia ago? Like, what happened at year 0 then? Was that the collapse of the Solheim Empire or something? Is ME for, like, massive explosion? Are we going to stop playing Dissidia? And then you're going to talk about the Aldercapt family, because both the Lucius line and Insomnia and the Aldercapt family in Niflheim are the birthplace and only rulers of their kingdoms. Like, Lucius, they always wait for a new king, not queen, new king, to surpass the throne, with only like one exception. Like, I think it's the rogue was female, but dressed as a man. But it's the same with Aldercapt. Aldercapt family pretty much gave birth to the Niflheim Empire, and the family is still in line with it many generations on until the events of the main game, where it all goes to shit. And say excavation of these sites are underway, but the only one that's actually has evidence of being explored is the Grove. Costelmark Tower is abandoned, and Pitios Ruins are abandoned. And it also suggests that demons only came about in the most recent 200 years. It said 501, and this is supposed to be like 720 something. Like, okay, sure. And yet you got this old work over here that Vestal's going to talk about through the intercom thing. Demons have existed for far longer because of the ancient artwork of them. They just weren't officially documented by modern history until 50. Also, Vestal, I guess it makes sense because of how he works in the Niflheim Empire, but he has an extremely pessimistic view of the Lucius Kylan family. Like, really pessimistic, and you're gonna see that as this goes on. Like, he sees them as, like, dictators and evil masters and people who see themselves above gods, yada yada. It's like, well, I mean, you're entitled to your opinion, but you're fucking wrong. Also, yes, it also reveals that the original artwork piece that you can find around this, but in the main game as well, the oracle at the top is supposed to be Era, which is a giant punch to the face for poor Ardyn, because Era was his mistress, if it didn't give it away already. And there was a prequel anime that was only one episode that's discovering this, that went a lot more into it, and they were like proper childhood sweethearts who grew up and just loved each other permanently, and Ardyn was happy because he had the ability to absorb the demonhood from people. He had the ability to heal people, and it never affected him. And as it's kind of already implied, it wasn't affecting him. Somnus decided upon himself that it was going to lead to darkness, and the gods agreed with him after the fact. So the gods really did just kind of throw him out. Like, Somnus was a bastard, attacked the one person who was basically Jesus, healing the unfortunate, and the gods decided to be the Roman Empire and just agree with the killing. And they were just like, yeah, sure, why not? And this is also showing that something that's a bit of an odd detail, that they talk about only ultraviolet hurts Ardyn, but his cells heal faster than it can hurt him, so he just feels like a sting across his body, but it's not actually damaging him. They never do anything with this. They just bring it up. Like, they never do anything with this at all. Like, I thought when they brought this up, it's like, oh, okay, this is how they're gonna stop his invasion. They're gonna put some ultraviolet on him, and they're gonna put it on like a new level that's extra strong that hurts him, so he has to bugger off. But no, they do nothing with it whatsoever. It's just there for context, I guess. And this is where it's going to start talking about how the demonification is actually a parasite and not this weird Star Scourge plague. They just call it the Star Scourge even though it's a parasite. Which I guess is like trying to explain the extraterrestrial, the paranormal and whatnot. It's not this mystical purge that just happens. It's that thing you're looking at right now. But it's just a bit like, oh, like it's kind of like when you watch Star Wars Episode 1 and they explain that the Force isn't some mystical force. It's actually that bollocks mitochondria science behind it, and it just kills some of the charm and mystery of it. Nowhere near as bad, because I kind of gathered that they would try and explain it away as something like that eventually. But it's still a little bit like, oh, okay, sure, why not? And this one has the exclamation point on it because when you click on these two, it advances the plot. So if you're speed running this episode, you can just go straight to this, click on it, and then click off it.
And his body is all but impervious to attack. It's no wonder the Founder King sealed him away on the Isle of Angel Guard. He undoubtedly...
That was the thing, because Ardyn is all but immortal. Like, he can be quote-unquote killed, but then he just sits in limbo until he feels like coming out. It's only in the main game where he was destroyed, then in limbo to actually get his sweet release of death, after Noctis sacrificed himself to give pursuit. And Vestal sees it as some kind of divine blessing that he managed to get to Ardyn, even though he doesn't care for the divine. Also, you might have noticed the Magitech soldiers, they're not Magitech people. They're natural soldiers. They're not robots. Because it's supposed to be like 20 odd years beforehand. Their demon technology and advancements hadn't been made yet. Because in the main game, their advancements in demonhood was only made because of Ardyn's help. So if Ardyn's currently unwilling, which he is, he's just curious, but he doesn't want to help. He doesn't want to be a part of demonifying. It makes sense. Like of course they wouldn't have robots, the demon robots yet. There is a rest camp point here if you just want to save, which I do decide to do in the end. God, we would have been going for half an hour. I wanted to get both chapter 1 and 2 done in this part, so then the next 2 parts can just be all the combat-y stuff. But as we head over here, Verstal for some reason talks super loud in that bit, even though, like, I haven't adjusted the audio. No, he's just really loud for that line of dialogue alone. Because he's advertising, just in case for some reason you haven't already, to look at the world map. Like, it's I guess the writers trying to be like, look at all this world building we've added that you guys asked for, that they literally just shoehorned here and don't do anything with. And there's also, I said, the documents that you can find around in here that you can do. But when you're done, come over and talk to Verstal, and you can advance it along.
There's something you should see.
Also, Verstal isn't that. It's not that Verstal's small, it's that Ardyn's tall, in case you're wondering. Ardyn's like over 6 foot. He's a proper lanky motherfucker.
The rock of Ravito. If my experiment on this specimen succeeds, it might provide the information you've been looking for. This way.
Also, yeah, just in case for some reason you doubted what Verstal said in episode Prompto, yes, Verstal did base all his clones off of how he looks, which is why he looks like an older Prompto right now. Because it's before he got proper old in another 20 odd years.
Freet the Infernian.
You subjugated a god and brought him here?
He was sound asleep, just like the legend said he'd be, so we put him on ice.
So Ardyn sounds very displeased against the idea of them trapping in gods.
If you manage to
when you compare it to how he is in the main game, like, yeah, there's a descent coming, you already know.
Could ever dream of knowing. You'll access 2,000 years of his memories, and if you can control him, he'll be a weapon of supreme power. It's certainly an enticing offer, isn't it? Just think you could exact sweet revenge through.
This is Verstal trying to put the thoughts in his head.
How do you know what I want?
I don't, but I know you have no other options. Well, shall we?
Well, so I kind of like Ardyn with his hair like this. I like it a bit longer. Like I also like it how it is in the main game, where it's a bit more crazy and a bit more cut down. But I don't mind the longer hair thing that he has going on here. Also, because Verstal's so much smaller, his default walking speed and Ardyn's default walking speed don't match. So eventually I just decide to walk on ahead because it's not happening.
You wish to restore them to greatness?
To surpass them, which is why I need you to lend me your strength. But I'm certain magic technology and demons are the keys to unlocking the door to a new future.
Are you ready? When you click on that, it's because you're ending chapter 2, just in case you've missed a few documents you wanted to get. Because we have a combat, we have to, and then we have an extra combat, and we have a boss fight.
Code me, squad. Adagium sighted.
Requesting backup from Nimbus squad.
Shutting down communications until all clear.
So, you've come to kill me, have you?
He seems already a little bit uncaring about the idea. He's like, oh, more people to try and kill me. Alright. But his mind is playing tricks on him. Because he just sees the reflection of Somnus in all these soldiers. His Somnus' legacy that is left behind. Well, that's what it's supposed to mean anyway. It's not just straight... it's not necessarily trauma, it's more that he's just sick of it, I guess. He's sick of seeing the Somnus legacy everywhere, and it's starting to affect his mind. But yeah, if you get a blind strike or a perfect parry, you can also get it to get a free demonification, which is an instant kill. Every demonification you get gives you summon swords. And if you stack up at 12, and the more swords you have, the more they'll do with your attack combo. Additionally, when you hit full, if you lock on and go to warp strike, you'll launch all the swords out in rapid succession first and then attack. but you also ditched. But you saw there, like I dived to the side, and the weapon span round to land into a lot of extra hits. Ow! So you get the blind side, 3 demonification. Once you get 5, it introduces the idea of launching the swords. But Royal Retribution, like, it's good to use every once in a while, but if you want to get a high score, like, you can't really be using it, because demonification will give you more points than using that. Also, because we've done all the boxes ticked, the cutscene's supposed to kick in, but that's why that guy was just walking along like a moron. Because for some reason, in an attempt to win, they freed the Infernium. Hey, Ifrit. And pissed off.
Before he destroys everything.
So Vestal just runs off. Sup? Ah! Oh. There we go. I forgot it did that. And yeah, this is still the same Final Fantasy 15 that have been updated so many goddamn times. It struggles sometimes. It has a little moment where it just stops for a second. It's yet to hard crash on me though, thankfully, and I got all the recording for this done without it hard crashing, so we're safe. And at some point I'll try and go back to record Comrades, because I know I need to do that, but they were way to mess around with it, and then like having to install a new thing, and then it not working on EU servers. I just decided to leave it for now until I know it's all good, and to be honest, I'll probably go back to it significantly after, because that was the thing. Even though it's been a little while, I noticed very quickly that I am kind of burnt out of Final Fantasy 15 now. But that's it for my talking this time, so next time on Final Fantasy 15, we begin our rampage. Until then, you guys take care now.
To take Somnus, his people, and his cursed kingdom, and burn them all to the ground! No! I was the one chosen to be king.
Ardyn.
Era.
Forgive me.
Huh?
I defied the will of the gods and revealed to Somnus you had been chosen to be king.
Huh?
I never dreamt he would try to kill you.
But he did. Somnus fooled everyone, so he could usurp the throne. Everything that happened, it's all his fault.
No. Listen to me. It's my fault. I'm the one who ruined your future. This was divine retribution for my sins.
You've no sins to atone for. Gods! Answer me! Why have you burdened us with this fate? Era! Oh no! Era! Please!
In the names of the gods above, fulfill your calling, Ardyn, and punish me for my sins.
Era.
Kill me.
That's right. Kill her. Put that monster out of its misery, just like I did.
I can't. My calling is to save lives.
Just like you saved that innocent man by turning him into a demon.
Please, Ardyn. You must live.
I can't. Not without you.
Come. Why not give the lady what she wants? Allow me.
No! I'll never forgive you, Somnus. This monster may not be able to destroy you, but I'll see to it that I destroy everything you built. Hear me, gods above. No longer shall I supplicate you for pardon. No longer shall I sojourn toward the light. Nay, the path I intend to tread is paved with blood and darkness. No longer shall I seek your guidance. This path is mine to tread alone.
The Empire's demonic experiments bore fruit before long, precipitating the production of a Magitech infantry. As recognition for his contribution to this research, Ardyn Azunia was inaugurated as Imperial Chancellor. Thanks to its newfound firepower, Niflheim managed to break the stalemate that shackled the nation for more than 100 years, and, in turn, forced Lucis to scale back its magical barrier. The untimely passing of King Mors ushered in the era of a new monarch, and the young Regis Lucis Kylum succeeded the throne. Meanwhile, Ardyn began to spread the Star Scourge throughout the world, stealing people's memories and learning as much about the kingdom as he could. In time, those memories began to merge with his own, gradually transforming him into a wicked echo of his former self. And now, at long last, the time for his revenge has come.